Hey everybody, great to have you back here in the fish tank. Today we're going to be talking about the PTR, the upcoming changes, the new cards for Minion Masters version 2.5. As always, there's a public PTR going on so you can get involved, check out the changes, check out the new cards, and crucially give your feedback. My video on this is a little bit later than normal, but I think the PTR is still open. So you can go to the Minion Masters Discord, give yourself the tester role, get involved in the PTR, and help shape things going forward. Links for everything relevant will be in the description. Right, let's dive in. So, as with all new seasons, there's going to be a couple of new cards. We'll just briefly go through those. Reminder that the things that we talk about today, these are the proposed state of the new cards, the proposed balance changes. These might not be the final ones, depending on the feedback that comes from the PTR and the discussions the devs have. Things may change, but this is where we're at the moment. So the first new card is the Robo Ninja. So 6 mana Outlander minion, 70 DPS, so that's strong. Cleaver does 60 DPS, so that's 70 DPS, 70 damage every second, so it hits pretty fast, it can deal with Horde pretty well. 400 health, it's only a ground-based and ground attacking minion as you would expect, but every 8 seconds it gains an arc slash. So this is kind of similar to how the Highland Huntress works with her Vicious Strike, where she kind of charges up her big attack, and then the next time she attacks she does the Vicious Strike. So the arc slash, instead of doing damage, instead of doing the regular attack, the Robo Ninja moves forward 8 range, dealing heavy damage to all enemies in its path. So I assume they're ground-based enemies, and I believe the heavy damage is going to be 150 damage. So that's going to be quite a big amount of damage if you can have a lot of stuff lined up. So that's going to be something that's going to have to be considered when you're positioning your Robo Ninja and playing against the Robo Ninja. So I don't think we have it at the moment, but I'm hoping there'll be some kind of visual to let you know that the arc slash is kind of charged and ready to go, just like where the Highland Huntress has those kind of windy leaves around her, so we know that that's something that's coming up. Right, so that's the first new card. The second new card is the Arcane Nullifier. This is a little bit confusing because this has kind of changed and the description is wrong, but that's just, this is just PTR things. So the idea of this is that a 4 mana spell, it will, and this is where the description's wrong, it will remove positive status effects on enemy minions and deal 100 damage to all enemies in the area. So that's kind of interesting because we are in a place in Minion Masters where positive buffs are everywhere. Spirit, Rage, Giant Growth, stuff like that. So the idea is this, for 4 mana, will remove those buffs and also deal 100 damage. So seems kind of strong because the buffs are pretty damn strong, and then of course the removal of that is therefore strong, and doing 100 damage as well is would be quite strong. I wouldn't be surprised if the damage drops a little bit on that. Doesn't do any face damage. Right, so those are the 2 new cards that are slated for the next update. Right, let's go through the balance changes. So Demon Warrior balance change is kind of like a bug fix where it's supposed to do double damage, 100 up to 200 when it triggers, but previously it was only doing 175 for some reason. So that's kind of been fixed, but the bug fix is also going to be a buff. Right, next one, Ghast. We've seen many different changes to Ghast along the line. And this one's quite a different change. So the idea is when an enemy ground minion dies nearby, he will store the essence of this minion. Now, nearby is 8 range. There's a 1 second cooldown from triggering these essences. I don't know if there's a maximum number of essences. Could be a fun thing to try out. And then, when there's been no enemies around for 2 seconds, he will consume all the essences and raise a skeleton with rush for each of those essences that he grabbed. So it says here, raise the skeleton with rush at the location the enemies died. Okay, so the reason for this change is primarily to make him better, but also what they were doing before to buff him was increasing his attack speed, increasing his revival cooldown, or reducing his cooldown, and that played havoc with his animation, because he's kind of attacking and then he's reviving something. He's kind of trying to do it all at once, and it just doesn't work. So the idea now is that his attack and his revival are completely separate, right? He's attacking, and then when he's out of combat, if he's got some spirits, some essences stored up, then he revives these minions, or these skeletons. So I think that's a better change, and also it gives them some other knobs to twist with regards to, you know, the cooldowns and stuff if they need to balance him. So I think that's a better place for Garth to be. And of course, let me know in the comments, what do you think? I know some of you love Garth, some of you hate him, but he's had a lot of buffs. This is obviously a change, but it's designed to make him better, so we'll see how he gets on. Right, next up we have Jezra. Okay, so she's going to go down to 8 mana, but lose 50 health. So down to 700 health. I don't hate that too much. Don't see her too often, but she can be tricky to deal with, because she's basically, her attack's kind of like a big whirly scrap. So you can't play Horde into her and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see if we see more play of Jezra. Right, next up we have one of the new cards from the current season, the Kamikaze Zeppelin, which we've really seen none of, unfortunately. Wartrack Dreadnought, of course, everywhere. Kamikaze Zeppelin, seen just a handful. And it's a shame, because the animation when it explodes, it's a beautiful looking explosion. Right, so Kamikaze Zeppelin getting a bit more HP. Doesn't even show on here, but the notes say health 85 up to 110, because remember, it can be shot down like a regular Zeppelin when it comes in. So this, I think it gets enough value when it explodes, but it gets shot down too often. So this change is designed to improve that. Right, next up, this is an interesting one for Morgrul's Mark. We know Morgrul's Mark at the moment is very, very strong, and the proposed change is to fix the spawn locations of the swarmers. So you may have noticed, especially when you play it on something that's fast moving like a rammer, you get swarmers spawning just all over the place. And I think that's because they spawn based on the location of the spell, not the location of the minion, and it doesn't take into account the movement of that. So the idea is so that the swarmers will spawn around the minion even if it's moving, which makes sense, but I don't understand why it's on the list as a buff, because I feel like there's two sides to that. Okay, you could say, well, it's better that the minions are around the thing they're trying to attack, which is, yeah, okay, that's a buff. But a lot of the time you use this, you play it on something, and then the minion, the swarmer, buggers off and grabs a bridge or something, which is very powerful. So that's going to be a nerf in that situation. So I'm not sure if this makes it stronger or weaker. Definitely doesn't need an overall buff. It's very strong at the moment. Right. Next up we have Mountain Shaper. This is more of a bug fix, but to make it more consistent. There's always been a problem with Mountain Shaper, the way it does its charges. Sometimes things get missed or pushed the wrong way. And for a card that's kind of underperforming, you can't take the risk of using it and it not doing what you need to do. So hopefully it's going to be more valuable. You'll be able to rely on it, okay? You need to be able to rely on it. You need to be able to look at the battlefield and expect it to do what it does. So that should make it better. Vampirism, little buff for Vampirism, which is of course is going to affect Nazara. It's really just a kind of a quality of life thing where if she's about to kill something and something else kills that, she will still get the heal and credit for the kill on it. So it's not, I don't think it's the case of if she's just attacking something, she gets the credit. It's if she was going to get the killing blow and something else steals it, then she will still get that. So better for her. Not sure if that's going to be enough. And we'll see a bit of another change for her briefly in a minute. And also remember, Vampirism, that change will also affect the Frostfang Familiar, which gives Vampirism to something else. Right, next up we have a change for the Zealots. How do we feel about this one? So the Zealots have been a card that were kind of everywhere, very strong, and then they got a mana nerf, and then you kind of never saw them. So the idea here is when one of them dies, or there's only one left in play, black hole, wink wink, the remaining one gains Rage, Haste, and the new change is for it to now get Spirit, which seems very strong. Let me know what you think. I think that's a strong change. We'll definitely see that played more. Right, next up we have some nerfs. Nerf to Blade Star. It's kind of, again, it's more of a bug fix. So this is, if you've ever seen it where it kind of gets stuck in a big minion and just destroys it, the idea is to prevent that from happening. So they say prevent it from hitting the same unit twice in a row. So that's without it bouncing off anything else and hitting a unit. So that's only these occasions where it gets stuck in stuff. You can still hit a unit, hit a tower, hit the same unit. That's not going to change at all. So it's more just a bug fix to remove these sort of niche cases where it gets stuck and just murders something. Right, Chief Icebreaker Bolf for the next one. This is a card that's everywhere, of course, in the current meta. So, he's going to lose true damage, but he's going to gain Icebreaker, which is a brand new keyword. And Icebreaker means that his damage is not reduced by Frozen. So it's kind of like true damage, but just for Frozen. So his first attack on a minion inflicts Frozen. That's still the same. And deals 100% increased damage to Frozen targets. So that's the new Icebreaker. So let's have a think. Icebreaker doesn't get reduced damage, but does double damage. Okay, I guess with only one of those, it would kind of cancel it out. But crucially, his damage is being reduced a lot. So down from 120 to 55. And his attack cooldown going down a little bit, which makes him attack a little bit quicker. So overall, his DPS is going to go down a lot. But remember, he does do that double damage to frozen targets. So he will still be able to do a lot of damage to frozen targets. But outside of frozen targets, on face, stuff like that, he's going to be a lot less valuable. So his theme kind of makes more sense now. He's the Icebreaker. He's the Icebreaker keyword. He does double damage to frozen targets. So that's a nice change. It did feel like stuff like him having full true damage didn't seem to make a lot of sense. Right. So those are the changes to both. We know as well as both, there's been a lot of stout hearts around. Caber Tosser not so much, but still there or thereabouts. So Caber Tosser, and this is going to be, I think, affect all the woodsmans. So the Caber Tosser, the woodsman, the groggy woodsman, so on and so forth. So damage going down from 100 to 70. The attack cooldown going up a little bit to negate that damage a little, that nerf a little bit. So attack cooldown going down from 2.1 to 1.7 seconds. So hits less, does less damage, but attacks more quickly. So that means they're going to be better against Horde, but overall DPS going down. So there was some important thresholds there. So the base damage before was 100, which is quite an important threshold when you think about what you kill in one hit. And the rage damage before was 150. Again, what you could kill in one hit. That's quite an important threshold. So those thresholds have changed. So 30 or 105 damage. Right, Net Blaster. Net Blaster. Attack cooldown going up to 4.5 seconds, so attacks less quickly. Did get a lot of buffs, probably over buffed a little bit. Always a unit like this that has an AoE crowd control effect can be very, very strong. So that needs to be handled with care. And then we go back to Nazara. We saw her gaining the improved vampirism kind of bug fix thing earlier. She's going to lose true damage and gain this icebreaker. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Why would she have true damage? The icebreaker, to remind you, her damage is not reduced by frozen. So she does her full 70 damage to frozen, just like she would if she had true damage previously. But she wouldn't be able to hit through shields anymore, for example. Unlike Chief Icebreaker Bolf, she doesn't have that double damage to frozen. That's just something that he has. But she does 70 DPS. I mean, on paper, she looks like she could be okay. Obviously, losing that true damage is a little bit of a nerf. But again, one of the new cards that we don't see very often at all. Right, next up we have a change to the prop scrats. This will also affect the prop horde and wherever else you may get them from. So their attack cooldown's going up to 0.9 instead of 0.8, so their DPS goes down. They are kind of everywhere at the moment. So, and now that the war track can no longer hit air, then I wouldn't be surprised if we see even more of these guys around. Right, next up, Rimagal. Rimagal gets, again, the Icebreaker keyword, loses true damage. Again, it makes sense. Also, it makes more sense now that his breath doesn't have true damage because he no longer has true damage. So we kind of like that, but of course, losing true damage and gaining this Icebreaker is overall a nerf. Slitherbound. So this is going to be all the little slithers wherever you get them from. Their attack cooldown is going up to 1.7 seconds, so they are pretty strong. You see them in decks even without any sacrifice slither mechanics, which shows you that they are pretty strong. So whilst the increased cooldown reduces their base DPS a little bit, it also reduces how often they can apply their poison, which is where a lot of their DPS comes from. Next up we have the War Track Dreadnought. Now, if you haven't seen my video from yesterday about the hotfix, I'll put a link up there. We saw some previous nerfs. We saw some nerfs to the War Track Dreadnought in the hotfix that are now live. Oh yeah, heads up, Xbox is now live as well. It was delayed over the weekend, the forced hotfix. Microsoft didn't approve it until today, but Xbox should be up, so that means Xbox Mobile and PC are all up and running right now. So, just to go over those previous changes very quickly. So, I think it lost some HP. Its hitbox was fixed, so you don't have to go inside it anymore. The scrap missiles on its back that you get at perk 3 no longer can hit air. That's a big nerf. And also, they can only hit things that are in the front 180 degrees of it. So they can't hit things behind it, which means you can tank it like a big unit where you have your tank at the front and your DPS horde, whatever, at the back. So you can do that. So overall, that's a nerf. I have played a little bit since yesterday, and it's still kind of strong. But these are the next level of proposed nerfs for it. If the stats show that it still needs it, let me know in the comments. What do you think of the War Track after the hotfix nerf? Playing it or playing against it? Is it still too strong? Is it weaker? Is it more manageable? Let me know. Okay, so the proposed second tier of nerfs are to reduce the base health of it, to reduce the AoE range of its attack. So currently its AoE is 2, reduce its basic attack. So these are the cannons on either side. Reduce the range of the AoE down to 1.5. Increase the radius of the missile scrat launch. So I guess that means you can hit things further away, which is, I guess, a little bit of a buff, maybe. Missile scrat attack cooldown 4 seconds instead of 3. And crucially, a big nerf, I think this is probably the overall biggest nerf of any of these, is the base attack range going down from 8 to 6. So 8 is quite a substantial range, kind of makes it annoying to deal with. 6 means that it has to get a lot closer to things, and things are going to trade a lot better with it. So those are the proposed changes to the War Track Dreadnought in the round 2 of the nerfs. And then the final thing we have is just the basic Woodman. which we saw earlier. This is the groggy version, but it's still the same. Attack cooldown and damage down to 70. Attack cooldown 1.7. Right. Okay. There are some other things that we need to discuss that are in this patch as well. Now, I don't know whether these are going to make it into 2.5 or not. It depends if they're ready to go and decided upon. Okay, so the first change, wildcards. You love them, you hate them. The proposed change for Premades is for wildcards to be removed entirely. And not only that, an additional restriction where the 2 Premade decks combined have to be made out of 20 unique cards. So that basically means you can't have the same card in both decks. So hopefully that makes things a lot more interesting in Premades, a lot less cheesy. The wildcards are most destructive in my point of view. You know, you guys know I hate wildcards in Premades, because that's where you get people running 6 Blade Stars, 6 Scrat Launchers, you know, just brainless stuff. So I do think that this will make the Premades much more competitive, less cheesy, higher skill ceiling. But, you know, a lot of people play wildcards, so they will kind of be disappointed. So that leaves us in a situation where no wildcards in solos, no wildcards in Premades, but wildcards in randoms. Randoms is going to be the kind of anything goes kind of thing, which I'm kind of okay with. So that is one of the proposed changes. The other proposed change is the new bridge rules. Again, that is something that is in this PTR, the new bridge rules. So if you cast your mind back a few months to when we had the discussion about those. So the new bridge rules are you can... they're kind of reverting to what they were before, but with a little twist. So you can now take bridges again with collision, so you can push units on and off them with regards to the unit's weight. And maybe I'll do a video about that. With units weight and stuff like that, because that's kind of a hidden stat, but it's also quite important to understand. And also units with a horizontal spread, so that's multi-units that you can play directly on the bridge, like Blood Imps or something. You can spawn them, and the first few are on the bridge. You can take those immediately. So those are the 2 things that are coming back from where they were before. But the new thing is there's going to be a 1.5 second counter, which you need to be on the bridge for 1.5 seconds before you can cap it. So you can't just place units on a bridge and then them run back like they used to and take it. You need to be on the bridge for that period of time. So I think this is kind of... I mean, it needs some testing. There's some weird edge cases that need to be dealt with. But I think it makes it kind of a middle ground between where we were with no bridge interactions on spawn and where... we used to be before with where we could interact with the bridges. This is kind of a middle ground, so there's going to be some skill involved. I think it's going to be less cheesy where you just have these... You won't be able to have these super cheap decks that just grab the bridge behind and then walk back. You're going to have to still get involved on the bridge. So we'll see if that works out. The idea is to make sort of control things more viable and big unit spam less viable, which is the opposite of that happened when they changed the bridges before. So but that's definitely something that needs to be tested out a bunch. We're going to have some edge cases where, you know, things like the stint can probably grab the bridge immediately, bridge buddies, stuff like that. What happens if you have a rammer running over the bridge? I think from when I checked it, the rammer doesn't run fast enough it doesn't run fast enough to get over the bridge in 1.5 seconds, so it does cap it. But if it has haste, it might get all the way across it. Is that something that needs to be addressed, or is that just part of the balance of it? It's like, well, if you're going to run fast, you're too fast to take bridges. That's just, you know, that's just the rule. So a lot in this PTR, and would love to hear from you guys in the chat and the comments. Let me know what you think of these changes. We've got those 2 new cards, bunch of balance changes, wild card removal, and 20 unique deck card restriction in Premades, and these new bridge changes. So a lot coming. Can't promise that they will all be in 2.5. Depends if they've been tested enough. Depends if... and I think that's specifically for the new bridge changes, whether it's finalized enough to be in 2.5. But we'll see. Fingers crossed. So that's... it's always interesting when there's these changes. Forces people to kind of readapt, get a little bit out of their comfort zone, and hopefully make the game healthier for everyone involved. And don't forget, of course, if you've got an Android mobile account, for Minion Masters. There is 300 rubies waiting for you the next time you log in on whatever platform. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm Bad as a Fish, and I will see you again soon here in the fish tank. You better be waving back. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.